And sure, an area man can watch your cat while his life is falling apart, no problem. You have just participated in a large-scale psychological research study. Please fill out the attached liability waiver and send it to theonion.com/newsbeat.
Free Talk Live.
Welcome to Free Talk Live. The phones are open if you would like to join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
Binkles Mountaineer.
And Bonnie.
Join us online anytime you want over at freetalklive.com. You can enjoy the features that we have on the website. They're free. So once again, head over to freetalklive.com to do that. Last night, Bonnie, you had a story that we just barely got into the very end of the show from the Foundation for Economic Education.
Yes.
And it's an opinion piece about people being angry at the so-called elites of the world. And we got a little bit into it if you want to kind of recap for us, but first...
before we get into that, I actually want to analyze this term, the elites.
Yeah.
So, it's really common for people to talk about the elites and just assume everyone knows what everyone's talking about. And okay, so there's a difference between, the money elite and the power elite. Except, of course, in a country where the money buys you power. So, we could be considered the information elite because we actually get our information from non-governmental and non-corporate media sources. So, I could be considered the massage elite because I'm better at that than most people.
He is.
For sure. But people probably aren't angry at you because you give a good massage.
Right. So,
but, yeah, the use of the word elites in everyday, libertarian Twitter, I think it's usually referring to people who run the show behind the scenes like Klaus Schwab, but then the left likes to use it towards people like Jeff Bezos.
Klaus Schwab is the founder of the World Economic Forum.
So when I say the elites, I usually mean people I might not even know their names, people who probably tell the presidents what to do and we never will know their names, like families and stuff like that, just stuff I assume happens because I don't think Joe Biden actually runs the United States. But some other people might be talking about Elon Musk. So it is important to bring it up.
I'm glad you brought that up, Picos, because I kind of touched on some of that last night when I mentioned that there's the people who have become wealthy through actually serving others and providing a good product or a good service and making their money on helping people. And then there's the people who've become wealthy and through the use of the state and through forcing their competition out of business or not allowing them to even compete in the first place or whatever kind of state violence that we're talking about here. And I'm not sure who the article is really addressing. I don't know if we've gotten...
Well, it seems like they're kind of hopping back and forth between... what I think they're trying to defend is the money elite. But the thing is, the more corrupt a situation is, the more corrupt a state is, the more the money elite and the power elite are the same thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, when you print off a bunch of money, all that money goes to, first it goes to the politically connected people, and then they spend it first.
Right.
And then it trickles on down to the rest of us. By then, it's lost a lot of what they call purchasing power. So when you have a more corrupt system like that, the power elite becomes more of the money elite.
And it's just a fact that a lot of these people who own corporations like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, I don't know the details, but in the United States, I know that we have, corporatism, people going and getting deals from the government, and it's not the same as just somebody who made it big in the free market.
That's right.
They have, the government giving them power to do things.
Yeah, and as we move to more sound money, which is very much where we're headed, I believe, as we head towards sound money, we get more of a point where the money elite is not the power elite, is not the politically connected class. So like Elon Musk, I guess the richest man in the world, although I guess that sort of changes every now and then. So he definitely gets most of his money from corporate welfare, from Tesla's largely funded by green energy initiatives and, government money. So that's a case of being the power elite making you the money elite.
But for instance, Satoshi Nakamoto or someone who we might be able to identify because that person's still anonymous, but somebody who was in early in the world of Bitcoin and held on for the ride, that's kind of a new money elite, right?
Absolutely. So that's someone who, Satoshi Nakamoto is hypothetically like the richest man in the world.
He's, I think, in the top
point.
20 or something like that.
Well, and the thing about that is like it's tough to say because the price of Bitcoin is constantly changing.
Yeah.
And there's the fact that everything that ever split off of the original Bitcoin is money that he can spend in those altcoins.
True.
In addition to so I mean, it's kind of hard to calculate, but like there's one of the potentially most rich people in the world.
Yeah.
And it's not because it's quite the opposite. Not only was he not receiving this money from printed money from governments, but he went completely in the opposite direction and gave us an incredible tool, and by providing that value became one of the money elite.
Correct. If we could identify him or her at this point, but that may never happen.
Yeah. Now, on the other hand, you have like John D. Rockefeller, who like actually went from one to the other. So at one point he was earning all of his money from providing energy to people in an efficient way, but once he had enough of that, he could buy politicians and push out his competition.
Yep.
So
seen that done so many times in various different businesses, where the business becomes the regulator.
Right.
They write the regulations that the politicians then pass because they've got the politicians in their pockets, and prohibit new competition, new innovators from coming in and shaking up the business.
Yep, and those are basically different by degree. So like even when you haven't performed what they call regulatory capture, so like even when you're not to the point where the corporation is writing the laws for the lawmakers, they still have this point where they can go, yes, please put extra regulations on because I can afford a legal team and an up-and-comer won't.
Correct. So, Bonnie, what is there a way that you can kind of briefly recap, but without going through it again, what I think it was Tom Mullen was sharing over at the Foundation for Economic Education before we pick back up?
Yeah, he's basically saying people are being childish by blaming the elites. Like, the elites did this all to us. Look at the inflation and the way the world is today. The elites did this, and it's all the elites and not my fault. He's calling the people, I don't know, just of the United States, but it seems to be United States centric, out as being the people who gave them the power. Because I kind of disagree with you and Arya's assessment of power. I don't think that corporations would have any power without the government, and the government has no power unless the people give it to them. So, I mean, like, we outnumber them for one thing.
That's true.
So he's saying basically there wouldn't be elites without the people who said, yes, give us the Patriot Act for more safety. Yes, give us this and that and Social Security for more security,
Yeah, I don't disagree that it is because to some extent people have consented. I think there is truth to that statement that, people get the government that they deserve, so to speak. I mean, it certainly doesn't apply to those of us who are not consenting and would like to not be targeted and talked to by these government goons, but because the majority of people do want to feel quote-unquote safe, they go ahead and demand mask mandates. They demand all kinds of safety measures and, like you said, Social Security to be waiting for them when they get old enough and being taken care of from cradle to grave. Because of this mentality, it certainly feeds the largesse of the state, for sure.
That's why I think if you're a person who's trying your hardest not to feed the state, then you just shouldn't take this personally. It seems to me that this article is pointed more towards the conservatives who say, oh, we need police to protect us. I don't care that they're putting red light cameras and invading our Fourth Amendment, all that. I don't care about that. I just want to be safe, so I want socialized police. And then also the leftists who say, I don't want to get coronavirus, a cold, so everybody has to be forced by the government to wear a mask, and I'll give them that power. It's not really, I think you and Arya were kind of taking it too personally. Like, I didn't give them that power, but yeah, you didn't. But I think this is more towards the average American.
I'd say it's a combination, really, because on the one hand, you have these terrible power mongers who already have this plan, and on the other hand, yeah, you do have the ordinary people being complicit in their own enslavement.
We're going to continue here because there's more to the story. That's why we brought it back up again tonight to dig into it further. You're going to share more with us on the way here, Bonnie. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And surprise, Post Office police found to be using their social media surveillance program illegally. We'll tell you about that coming up, too. It's Free Talk Live.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you're invited. If you want to join the show, you can take control of the airwaves here. The number is 603-283-6160. It's Ian Peakless Mountaineer and Bonnie in the studio here tonight at 603-283-6160. By the way, you want to get into the world of cryptocurrency, you can go and get started over at Bitcoin.com. Just click Get Started at the top of the page, and you will learn some of the basics about crypto. It's important to get those concepts down before you dig in deeper and actually maybe get some Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or some other cryptocurrencies. In fact, you can get a bunch of them through Bitcoin.com. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop there over at Bitcoin.com. And if you're not brand new to crypto, you can get the latest news headlines anytime from the world of crypto over at news.bitcoin.com. Again, news.bitcoin.com. Let's go to your calls and thoughts, and we'll continue with Bonnie's piece. Well, you didn't write it, but from the Foundation for Economic Education that you're sharing with us tonight about the elites. First, Bad Slave is on the line in New Hampshire. You're on Free Talk Live. Sorry, Bad Slave. We got you now. Go ahead. It was my bad. Yep, we got you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good. Yes, I just want to say that if it wasn't for the extra powerful central government, the elite would be drastically emasculated.
So how did we get a super powerful central government?
Well, it's because of people on the left think that that's the right answer.
Oh, people on the right think that too. I mean, the Republicans were in charge for many years.
They're always giving lip service to smaller government.
Sure.
To lower taxes.
Getting us into wars.
They don't follow through.
No.
Of course, but I mean, it's
just like the left is always giving lip service to being anti-war,
unless they're in charge.
There's incentive all around, and the right people are, and you've got what the heck, everybody consenting. You got to stop consenting at some point, or we're not going to get anything different. I mean, at least get the New Hampshire, general court to actually, nullify a shitload.
Okay, you can't say that on the radio, but he's talking about nullification there with the New Hampshire government possibly telling the federal government to go pound sand on various different issues. Various different issues, and there have been times when New Hampshire has done that. Of course, the classic example is seatbelt laws, where New Hampshire's state representatives have time and time again, because it keeps coming up by those who want to mandate seatbelts. The mandatory seatbelt law keeps on coming to the State House, and they keep on rejecting it. And therefore, they are rejecting millions of dollars in federal funding for the highway department or wherever it would end up. And so that's one example, but there have been other ones.
Well, and this is the thing. I mean, it's kind of like a biological or a computer attack. If you keep hitting it, or like if you imagine trying to beat down a door, you kick the door, it's still there. You kick the door again, it's still there. I mean, if you just keep kicking that door, eventually it's going to be brought to splinters and you get through. And the same thing happens in the legal system.
You've done that before.
I have, in fact. And the same thing happens in the legal system. So, okay, this year we brought this up. Oh, it didn't get through. This year we brought this up. Oh, it didn't get through. I mean, the USA Patriot Act is one of the most tyrannical pieces of legislation ever. And every single year during the fall, they would bring it up. But after the Twin Towers fell, all of a sudden there's enough fear that it gets through.
That's right.
And the same thing happens with every kind of expansion of government power. As long as we hand the ability to, honestly, to regulate anything by force. Like, you could pick the most innocuous thing possible, just the tiniest little nothing power, and if you give me the ability to enforce it by initiating force, by threatening people, I can tell you exactly how that one power will expand into an all-encompassing totalitarian government.
Yeah, I mean, that's what reminds me of what Harry Brown used to say. He was the Libertarian Party presidential candidate in the year 1996 and 2000, arguably the last great Libertarian Party presidential candidate, sadly. But he was really great.
Last meaning most recent, not final.
Yeah. He would point out that you can, even if you could somehow construct the perfect government program that was somehow efficient and only did one thing specifically and did a good job of it, you would not be able to, even if somehow you could get that to pass, which of course is highly unlikely because it gets through the political process and then it gets all kinds of modified. But even if it passed in exactly the way you envisioned it, you wouldn't be the one who runs it. It would be bureaucrats who run it, and they would come in there and demand more, bigger budgets and expand their purview far beyond what you had originally intended for the program. And you'd have, before you know it, huge government as a result of that. So, Bonnie, you had this story here tonight that you were sharing with us from the Foundation for Economic Education.
So he goes through the years, starting as far back as the Constitution being a power grab that the people were okay with happening, that usurped lots of power from people to the government. And he goes through the years, and he got up to the breaking up of Standard Oil. He says, considering how his honest effort was rewarded by those it benefited, it's hard to blame Rockefeller for throwing in with the government in a scheme to make dishonest money at the same people's expense.
I don't know. I kind of don't have a problem blaming people for going in with the government and using violence to...
I do agree with that, but...
Yeah, I absolutely blame him.
Yeah.
I mean, so for one thing, if Rockefeller had not done what he did, especially with, so he used his political contacts to put a whole lot of pressure on every single medical school in the country. So they're getting sued into oblivion left and right, except the ones that he personally props up with his own personal funds. And of course, he's getting lauded for this. Oh, what a great humanitarian. He's keeping schools around. Yeah, schools that were only threatened because of his influence in the first place. And which schools did he keep up? Oh, the ones that are prescribing petrochemicals. So at this point, every other school of medicine, and there were many, many schools of medicine in this country, but every single, and throughout the world for that matter, but every school of medicine was obliterated because of his use of government power.
Wow, I didn't know that about him at all.
Yeah.
Me either.
And that's why we're in the mess that we're in now, where, Pfizer controls all of these democratic powers at the moment, and it's just another extension of the oil company using government power to destroy their competition.
And I think all that stuff is really bad, but it started off with actually being an honest company, and then his competitors appealed to the government for help, and the people didn't stand up and say, no, don't break up Standard Oil. We want a free market. The people didn't stand up and
even back then, people didn't like rich people, right? That was what they used?
They were like, break them up, and then he ended up doing bad things. But that's
more coming up here.
Recap.
We'll continue with this story about people being angry at the elites. And I guess what he's saying is, well, they used violence against him, so you could understand why he turned the gun around against others, but it's still not okay. More coming up. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg says the alliance is seeing no pullback of Russian troops in Ukraine, warning that additional offensive actions can be expected. It comes after Moscow pledged to reduce attacks in northern Ukraine after peace talks earlier this week. Rosie Burchard reports from Brussels, where NATO is headquartered.
Despite Moscow suggesting it would scale down attacks in parts of Ukraine earlier this week, Stoltenberg says intelligence suggests Russia is not pulling troops back from Ukraine, but rather repositioning them and trying to reinforce its offensive in the Donbas region. The NATO number one says that means more attacks and more suffering can be expected. The remarks were made as NATO unveiled its annual report. Stoltenberg said the war in Ukraine has created a greater sense of urgency among NATO allies when it comes to boosting defence spending. Only 8 of the 30 NATO members met the alliance's target of spending 2% of GDP on defence in 2021.
US President Joe Biden is ordering the release of 1 million barrels of oil per day from the country's strategic reserves. It's in a bid to rein in high energy prices. The price of gas has spiked in recent weeks as the US imposed sanctions against Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. Tony Waterman has more from Texas.
The president has also called on Congress to penalize companies who he says are sitting on millions of acres of non-producing federal land and 9,000 already approved drilling permits. Americans consume about 21 million barrels of oil a day, nearly half of that going towards gasoline. Prices at the pump hit a record high after the Biden administration announced a ban on Russian energy imports earlier this month. They've come off a bit since, but with the national average still at $4.22 a gallon, many Americans are feeling the pinch, which is impacting the president's approval ratings. News of the release has sent oil prices tumbling some 5%.
Police in the US seized nearly 10 million counterfeit pills that contain fentanyl last year, according to a new study. It's a significant spike compared to previous years. Fentanyl is up to 50 times stronger than heroin, and it's largely blamed for the huge surge in accidental overdoses in recent years. William Denslow reports from New York.
The study led by researchers at New York University found that US law enforcement seized more than 2 million pills containing fentanyl in the last 3 months of 2021 alone. The authors say that police seizures are up nearly 5,000% over the past 4 years. Researchers say users of recreational drugs are at risk because criminal groups create the fentanyl pills to look like pharmaceutical drugs such as Xanax or Percocet. Its prevalence in the US drug supply is largely blamed for accidental overdose deaths, now exceeding 100,000 a year.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, phones open if you want to join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Chicken or the egg? Was it the elites who created the system that is doing this to us, or is the system, which is people, doing this to us because other people want it done? Is it just what people want? Is total tyranny?
Well, I think it was Hamilton that said the purpose of government is to protect the rich from the poor.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
That seems to be doing well.
Yeah, it's doing a great job. I mean, we really do live in exactly the world that Alexander Hamilton imagined. He wanted a big, giant, global empire with a lot of debt.
Yeah, 29, 30 trillion, something like that now. I saw something today about the Canadian debt, and I just thought, oh, isn't that quaint? They've got a whole trillion. But there's much smaller.
Well, you know, if they were the world's dominant currency, they could print like mad with no real
consequence.
Well, of course, we have consequences now.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Bonnie, what else do we need to know from this story?
So in the last segment, we went through how this guy in this story says that considering how Rockefeller's honest effort was rewarded by those it benefited, it's hard to blame Rockefeller for throwing in with the government in a scheme to make a dishonest money at the same people's expense, referencing the breaking up of Standard Oil.
I think also referencing the foundation of the Federal Reserve, right?
Well, he referenced lots of different things. He went from like the Constitution
But that's what he
onward.
said, dishonest money. Wasn't Rockefeller involved with that whole group in 1913?
Probably, but I can't think of a direct line. I mean, it would be kind of shocking otherwise, but I can't think of any direct. Hey, if any of the callers know a direct line between Rockefeller and the Jekyll Island thing, let me know.
Yeah, I can't remember it. My 10th grade history teacher told us all about the Jekyll Island thing. It wasn't in our textbook or anything. He was like a conspiracy guy, but in a good way. It was pretty cool. And so that's the last time I heard about it, honestly.
Oh, conspiracy realist.
Yep. So anyways, he goes on to say, several decades later, Bill Gates built a software company that refused to send money to Washington. You rewarded that with full-throated support for the government's antitrust suit against Microsoft, based upon the ridiculous premise that Microsoft had an obligation to design its product for the convenience of its competitors. Gates learned the same lesson Rockefeller did, that mob-styled "we the people" can't be trusted with freedom. Better to collude with the government and try to control them. Who knows what they might do next? Yes, very wealthy people with names like...
Now look at Gates today. I mean, he's become a total, if he never was this way originally when he was just a computer nerd, he's now a total control freak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's I don't know how true this is, but there's kind of a story going around about like, well, he was going to stay out of government until government threatened to split up his empire.
Yeah, that's what she was talking about.
Yeah, and I don't know how true that is, honestly, just diving into Bill Gates' history. Like, he has always been involved in the government.
Has he?
Like, I mean, honestly, the development of our technology has been just completely intertwined with the military, with DARPA, with all of these government, mostly military programs. But so I think he always would have, but certainly historically he didn't make this turn until they tried to split up his empire.
I was going to say, I don't think that it really changes this guy's point that there was a antitrust suit against Microsoft, and the people, just, didn't come out and say, no, you can't do that.
Well, most people don't even pay any attention. I mean, I get what he's saying. Like,
he's given
it's all
so
the
many
people's
examples, though. It's not just this one thing, and now it's all the people's fault. He's given a million examples that we talked about since yesterday.
I don't disagree with what he's saying here, that ultimately, if people were paying attention and wanted something different, maybe they would get it.
So is it not their fault that they're not paying attention? I think it's their fault that they're not paying attention.
Well, I'm just pointing out that a lot of people probably don't even know anything about what he's talking about. Most people probably have no idea anything about the history of Microsoft and the fact that they've been targeted by the government or anything like that. These people are working. They're out trying to make ends meet. They're going to work. They're coming home. They're trying to ignore.
Choosing to pay their taxes.
Yeah, because they're afraid
they know
of
about
what's
the
going to
wars.
happen.
They know about at least one thing.
Learn Bitcoin.
You can't know. You can't not know at least one heinous thing that the government has done. You've never heard of Waco. Okay, then you've heard of the war in Yemen.
You may know you may know that they've done something heinous. They may have even targeted you or your family members, but then you know that they are violent and deadly, and in a lot of cases, you will want to avoid them, and you'll take a plea deal. And you'll want it all to go away just so you can get back to taking care of your family, because the old saying is you can't fight City Hall. And if you can't fight City Hall, you sure as hell can't fight the state. And if you can't fight the state, you definitely can't fight the federal government. So there's this whole mentality of we can't do anything about this. Even if we don't like what they're doing, I the little person, cannot affect what is going on in D.C. And that's a good argument.
Well, it used to be. So, I mean, I definitely had sympathy for the idea of like, well, there's nothing that the individual can do against this system. But that all changed in 2009. As soon as cryptocurrency came into existence, we had a way to fundamentally undercut the power source of these terrible mafias.
No doubt.
And I can't see how you could say that there's nothing the individual can do when the individual can all move into one place. That was decided before 2009.
Sure. Now you're talking about the Free State Project. Absolutely.
It's not like there's no option. I just think if you have a conscience and any type of morals, you're against the state, you wouldn't personally back the things they're doing. And if you can't do that, you're going to try to get a way to get out of it, get out of their system.
Yeah, I mean, if you are aware enough to know the principles of liberty and to care about those principles and are willing to actually take the risk of putting them into play, and to do something about it, then yeah, there are paths, and we have taken that path of joining together with other like-minded people in New Hampshire who care about freedom and are doing something about it. That doesn't mean that it's an overnight process. It's going to take a very long time. But most people don't care about the ideas of liberty. They may not like what the government's doing to them, but they do like what the government does to other people, or they might
And that's the whole
about.
point of this article. He's saying you want to be safe, you want the Patriot Act, you want the TSA, but you don't care how it's affecting other people. That's the whole point.
No, I get that. I'm just saying for the average person, or for not even for the average person, for the person who cares enough about freedom to pay attention and to be frustrated by the lack of it, I wouldn't blame that person if they just wanted to try to ignore what was going on and just try to make ends meet and feed their family and go to work. That a lot of people purposefully don't pay attention to what happens in the real world as far as politics, because they don't think they can have an effect on it. They don't know about the Free State Project. Well, they don't know about libertarianism.
Well, there's an old saying that for evil to triumph, it only takes the complacency of the good.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely,
and what he seems to be calling for, like I see his point as far as like if there had been I think he puts it a full-throated defense of the property rights of Microsoft.
Sure.
When they were targeted, I mean, like the people on the political right, the Republican Party, and those voters, they have at least a lip service and a reputation for defending property rights, for things being as they used to be, conservatism. And I certainly don't remember any of them speaking out and saying, no, you can't do this. This company has rights.
But even if they had, this is where I'm quibbling with his point, is even if a bunch of people had, call your congressman and tell him to defend Microsoft.
Well,
how many times has that done anything at all?
Well, he's way ahead. That was the last example he's given in this timeline of examples of times that people gave the government power.
It would have at least made the power mongers find a new way of attacking.
I don't think it would have done anything. They would have done whatever they wanted.
If there had been a public outcry against them doing this?
Yeah, they would have done whatever they wanted, and then come election time, they'd have all been reelected, because it doesn't matter. I mean, look at what happened with the Bearcat here in Keene, for instance. Like 90% of the people of Keene, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, were against it. People spoke out. They called the Keene City Councilors, which is a much more intimate connection.
Well, because in that situation, it's the people who didn't step up, like the Republicans who love cops.
A ton of people stepped up.
Yeah, but the Republicans who love cops were enough to be complacent and let them...
There's more coming up here. This is Free Talk Live.
When you're coping with bad news and the news media come calling, and they will, don't clam up. As notorious political figures find out the hard way, the cover-up can be worse than the crime. So get out in front of unfavorable news about your company, your group, or organization, or yourself. The sooner you confront a negative story, the sooner it will be over. Responding as quickly to negative stories as you do to positive ones enhances your credibility. Hiding embarrassing information or lying will do more damage than damage control. Never stonewall. Tell your side of the story, use specifics, and detail what corrective action has already been taken. Respond in kind. If the issue is emotional, don't sound like a cold, unemotional Mr. Spock. For more tips on critical communication skills for the way things are now, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Free Talk Live.
Is it ever appropriate to use violence to oppose the state? I can't say I would blame somebody for wanting to meet the SS at the front door with the clubs and the guns or whatever they could to defend their family. I wouldn't blame them.
Gandhi went to jail. What if he had met the English at the door with shotguns instead of going to jail? I don't want to talk about this anymore because, it's just madness. I don't need to be playing these scenarios out where what am I going to do if this happens or what am I going to do if that happens?
It's not a good mindset.
I'm gonna get the chainsaw out and cut a couple of trees across the driveway, and I'm gonna sit out there with a 50-cal bullet, and I'm gonna pick them off.
It'll drive you crazy.
Nuts. I mean, you're gonna die from high blood pressure and a lot of shiny guns. I'm a ticking time bomb waiting to go off. Coppers.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Wolverines. Brrr.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, the phones are open if you want to join us here. We're talking about the elites, people's anger at them, or should we be blaming the victim in this case? The people who've been oppressed by the state. Many of them seem to want the oppression. So is it really their fault is why the elites have the power?
It's definitely your fault if you want the oppression.
Indeed. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Tonight, you've got Ian.
Bakeless Mountaineer.
And Bonnie.
And I want to say thank you to Matthew, who is a Free Talk Live supporter of our AMPS program at amps.freetalklive.com. Matthew is a silver level supporter, which means that he's given, I think, at least $5 a month to AMPS. You can go to amps.freetalklive.com. That'll take you to our Patreon, and you can get signed up there and help us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live to help us get the ideas of freedom on more radio stations around the United States and elsewhere via the internet. You can go to amps.freetalklive.com. You get some cool perks for doing that, and we certainly appreciate it. So in just the last moments of the prior segment, I was talking about the futility of attempting to do something through the system, or at least the feeling of futility in a lot of cases, that we were this article that you've got from the Foundation for Economic Education is suggesting that if only people had stood up to defend Microsoft from the antitrust attack by the government, then that could have stopped this, expansion of power.
Well, you don't have to give them support.
And I wasn't saying that it would stop the expansion of power. I'm saying that it would force them to go another route. So when people push back on ideas, you do actually see basic retreats from the expansion of power in that sector. You see them put those efforts in another direction.
That can happen, but I was given the example of something that happened a little closer to home here in Keene, New Hampshire in 2011 or so, I think, 2012, somewhere in that range. There was a proposal to accept a $280,000 grant from the federal government, taxpayer money, to purchase what is called a Bearcat. It's basically an armored personnel carrier for the police. It's a modified truck with some armor put on it, like gun ports and a turret, and it's all kinds of crazy stuff that they can do with it.
So a quasi-tank.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, it was called a tank by one of the city councilors at the time. And they, of course, the police wanted a new toy, and what city council is going to say no? Well, it turns out at least one member of the city council said no, and managed to kick this thing down the street a little bit here to actually have a debate on it. Instead of everybody just voting for it on one night, he managed to delay that and alerted people to what was going on, and people turned out in a way that I have not seen until just recently with the COVID mask mandate situation, which you went to that with me, Bonnie, and that room, remember the city council room was packed, right?
Yep.
It was standing room only.
Then they had a watching room downstairs because there was like overfill.
Yeah, the fire chief was downstairs. You could not come into the room unless someone left the room. So they were at capacity. And so there were actually literally were people standing on the first floor. That happened recently during the COVID mask mandate hearings that they had late last year for bringing the mask mandate back. And the last time that happened was in 2011 or 2012 when they had the hearing about the Bearcat. The room was packed full of people, and every single person who spoke on that issue at the city council meeting, except for the police, every single person was against the acquisition of the Bearcat. And further, let me go on. Further, one of the city councilors, who ultimately was one of the three who voted against it, one of the city councilors said she was contacted not just by the people in that room, but also email, phone calls. Because here in Keene, in a little town, you can pick up the phone and call these people, right? Like, it's not like the federal government where there's gatekeepers and staff members, and you can't talk to these house reps or whatever. So they heard. She said it was 90%, 80 to 90% of the contacts she received were against the Bearcat. And that's got to be true across the board for all the rest of the counselors. But yet they all voted, not all of them, but, 13 out of 15 or whatever it was.
But that was after however many years, 200 years that Keene's been around, of people accepting the corporation that is Keene existing. So it's not like it's just people need to suddenly just stop saying no to whatever specific project their city councilors are trying to push through right now.
The point
it stopped saying yes to these entities existing from the beginning. That's why he went back to all the way to the Constitution.
I get that. I was bringing that up as an example of how it doesn't matter if you contact these people.
I don't think that's what he was saying. I don't think this person ever just said, hey, call up your reps and tell them not to go
well, what was he saying about Microsoft then? It sounded
to me like so many examples before that.
Yeah.
He's saying you're accepting the government existing.
I get it, but calling them up and telling them to go away
Never
won't
said
work.
that.
Calling them up and saying leave this company alone won't work.
Well, because of all the things that they've accepted so far.
Fine. I'm just saying that's why some people are like, you know what? This is pointless. I'm walking away from this.
And they don't actually walk away from it. They pay taxes.
Yeah. Because they're afraid of what the state's going to do to them. Look at what they're doing to the Crypto Six as another example. Look what they did to Ross Ulbricht. Look what they want to do to Julian Assange. These people are monsters. I don't blame anyone who wants to stay under the radar.
So how recently was the Bearcat discussion?
2012, roughly, 2011.
Well, did these representatives get voted out?
Of course not. Not a single one of them that I'm aware of were punished in any way, shape, or form at the ballot box.
That is really disappointing because you actually have a chance of doing that here that is unlike any other state. I mean, you only have 3,000 people that each of the representatives represents?
Right. But it's Keene, and we just need to give Keene to Vermont because it's literally ridiculous here. So so liberal, whatever.
So let me give you a sort of counter narrative on this for the example that we were discussing with Microsoft.
Yeah.
So what might have happened if there was enough pushback, if there were enough people saying, now wait a second, they have rights to their property.
Mm-hmm.
Like they invented this technology, so why can't they profit from it? What might have happened, that might have sparked a larger discussion where people go, well, now, wait a second, it's a corporation, that's part of the government, can't the government tell them to split up or combine as they choose? And then we actually go into oh, wait a second, corporations were never designed to be this way. Like, the original purpose of a corporation, you had to do a public good.
Goods, yeah.
Right.
Like building a bridge or something, right?
Building a bridge, building a dam, infrastructure was the primary use case. In any case, you had to have a demonstrable public good in order to to make a corporation in the first place. And even then, they had a time limit on them. So even while they were doing this public good, you could only have a corporation for so long.
Okay. That changed.
Yeah. I mean, that changed around the turn of the century, around the same time that we were talking about earlier with Standard Oil being broken up, with the creature from Jekyll Island, as it is less than affectionately known, the whole Fed system. I mean, that was also the same time, the turn of the century, when the purpose and allowable use of a corporation was changed so that they could be perpetual and that their purpose could be profit, which... that's kind of insane, because I mean, profit can come, as we were discussing in the very first segment. Like, you can get rich two ways. You can get rich because you actually helped people, or you can get rich because basically it's stolen money.
Sure.
So you can. So if you have a perpetually existing phantom, if you will, which is what a corporation is, it's a legal fiction.
Sure. File folder.
Right.
With papers.
Right. If you have this perpetually existing ghost whose only purpose is to consume, to create more and more profit, then some of that's going to help people and some of it's going to harm people. And that's just going to feed into, well, the corporatocracy that we have now.
Okay.
Now, this is a conversation that could have been sparked back when Microsoft was being threatened to be split up,
or when Standard Oil was being attacked.
Yeah, all of this time, like these, and sure, it's not going to stop them, but it's going to slow them down. It's going to make them find other ways to take our power from us.
Okay. What's next, Bonnie?
He says, yes, very wealthy people with names like Schwab, Gates, Bezos, and Benioff get together with government officials at meetings like the World Economic Forum and the Bilderberg Group, where they make all sorts of nefarious plans for running your life. Guess what? That's just talk, something they have every right to do. Only power you gave the government gives it any teeth. Like Frankenstein, only you can destroy the monster you created. Even if the government continues to... the Canadian truckers are showing you how. Even if the government continues to physically remove the trucks, the truckers still have the power. By simply refusing to drive, they can bring the global elite's managed economy to its knees. If they remain resolved and people support them, they will win.
Yeah, that was an interesting situation. We followed that quite closely. We can talk more about the truckers and whether or not they've won. This is Free Talk Live. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says the alliance is seeing no pullback of Russian troops in Ukraine, warning that additional offensive actions can be expected. It comes after Moscow pledged to reduce attacks in northern Ukraine after peace talks earlier this week. Rosie Burchard reports from Brussels, where NATO is headquartered.
Despite Moscow suggesting it would scale down attacks in parts of Ukraine earlier this week, Stoltenberg says intelligence suggests Russia is not pulling troops back from Ukraine, but rather repositioning them and trying to reinforce its offensive in the Donbas region. The NATO number one says that means more attacks and more suffering can be expected. The remarks were made as NATO unveiled its annual report. Stoltenberg said the war in Ukraine has created a greater sense of urgency among NATO allies when it comes to boosting defence spending. Only 8 of the 30 NATO members met the alliance's target of spending 2% of GDP on defence in 2021.
US President Joe Biden is ordering the release of 1 million barrels of oil per day from the country's strategic reserves. It's in a bid to rein in high energy prices. The price of gas has spiked in recent weeks as the US imposed sanctions against Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. Tony Waterman has more from Texas.
The president has also called on Congress to penalize companies who he says are sitting on millions of acres of non-producing federal land and 9,000 already approved drilling permits. Americans consume about 21 million barrels of oil a day, nearly half of that going towards gasoline. Prices at the pump hit a record high after the Biden administration announced a ban on Russian energy imports earlier this month. They've come off a bit since, but with the national average still at $4.22 a gallon, many Americans are feeling the pinch, which is impacting the president's approval ratings. News of the release has sent oil prices tumbling some 5%.
Police in the US seized nearly 10 million counterfeit pills that contain fentanyl last year, according to a new study. It's a significant spike compared to previous years. Fentanyl is up to 50 times stronger than heroin, and it's largely blamed for the huge surge in accidental overdoses in recent years. William Denslow reports from New York.
The study led by researchers at New York University found that US law enforcement seized more than 2 million pills containing fentanyl in the last 3 months of 2021 alone. The authors say that police seizures are up nearly 5,000% over the past 4 years. Researchers say users of recreational drugs are at risk because criminal groups create the fentanyl pills to look like pharmaceutical drugs such as Xanax or Percocet. Its prevalence in the US drug supply is largely blamed for accidental overdose deaths, now exceeding 100,000 a year.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. The trial is underway in Virginia of El-Shafi El-Sheikh, the British-born ISIS fighter accused of murdering journalists and aid workers in Syria. He's one of the 4 so-called Beatles, whose English accents could be heard on videos depicting gruesome executions carried out by ISIS. Edward Tuzansky is a senior fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute, a think tank in Philadelphia, and he questions whether the Virginia court is really the right place for El-Sheikh to face justice.
We tie ourselves in knots of our own making in the West. We don't treat these individuals as illegal enemy combatants who have violated the laws of war. The rules of law are pretty clear. Under Geneva, you have to wear a uniform with rank insignia. You have to report through an identified line of command. You cannot hide your weapons and you cannot target non-combatants. They violate every one of those rules, yet we give them the same rights and protections as you would someone in a criminal court of law.
But efforts at the U.S. detention center in Guantanamo Bay to deal with suspected al-Qaeda terrorists outside the established norms have not gone so well, with now 3 separate presidents grappling with legal complexities there. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
Our main news again. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says the alliance is seeing no pullback of Russian troops in Ukraine, warning additional offensive actions can be expected. US President Joe Biden's ordering the release of 1 million barrels of oil per day from the country's strategic reserves. And nearly 10 million counterfeit pills seized by US police last year contained fentanyl, according to a new study. And that's the latest feature story news. Kate Fisher reporting.
I'd like to tell you about our newest innovations in helping to keep our communities safe. Problem Creation Policing. Problem Creation Policing, or PCP, is a way to get the entire community involved in maintaining a safe neighborhood. This is more than just a neighborhood watch. We plan to have officers on the ground, helping, aiding, and surveilling for illicit activities. You never know when you're going to find some young punk doing something illegal out in public. That's why we're going to have officers everywhere. You never know when they're going to pop up. So we want PCP in our homes, at our jobs, and in our schools. We want PCP everywhere. How can you get involved in PCP? Well, for starters, you can call your local authorities and ask them how you can get PCP. I'm Byron Kingsley from the Citizens Respecting the Authority of Police.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the second hour of the program. The phones are open for you if you want to join us at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Since we're talking about all of this skullduggery of government goons meeting with corporate executives and so on, apparently Peakless Mountaineer has a story that he wants to discuss, or at least something about this new group that's been formed.
No, it's not new.
Or at least new to me.
I just hadn't heard about it until today, in fact.
The World Government Summit. We'll learn more about them coming up here in just a moment. And, of course, take your calls and thoughts at 603-283-6160. What we've been discussing in the first hour through now has been, Bonnie, a story that you brought in. Actually, we started it last night, but didn't get into it very deeply. By Tom Mullen over at the Foundation for Economic Education. We've actually had Tom on this show, I think, when he was at the Porcupine Freedom Festival in the past, or Liberty Forum, one or the other, maybe both. Good guy, definitely a principled, freedom-loving guy. He is writing an essay for the Foundation of Economic Education about who to blame. Is it the world elites who are wielding all this power and they're solely to blame, or is it the people who are allowing that to happen? Not only allowing, but also asking and demanding for larger and larger government, ever more controls, ever more taxes, ever more, from cradle to grave being taken care of by the state. And I don't disagree with him that if people weren't putting up with it, then they wouldn't get away with it. And a perfect example of this is, of course, the mask mandates and the various different COVID mandates that went on over the last couple of years. If people didn't do what they were told to do, it would not have happened. Like, they would have reversed the mask mandate the next day or the next week. They would have, it would have stopped being enforced, or they would have reversed it or whatever, because they know they don't have enough jail cells to put everybody in if people just didn't wear the masks around.
And
but
that's
they did.
That's a perfect example of the people in that situation actually have the power, but they're just giving it to the government. The government doesn't have the power to put every single person in a jail cell, but the people just complied anyway because they gave their power away.
Yeah, that's true. And then he brings up the Canadian truckers, which was a really interesting situation. We followed it quite closely here on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, I recently found out that they're still up there. I had no idea that they're still protesting
In Ottawa?
Yeah. I mean, it's died down a whole lot, but I haven't gotten a lot of information on this, but apparently those protests are still going on.
Well, then to their credit, they should claim the win, and they are claiming the win for the various different provinces repealing certain medical or whatever mandates with regards to restrictions and COVID and such. Those things did get repealed during the time frame of the protest in Ottawa. Now, of course, the government's never going to admit that was the reason for it.
Of course not.
that could very well have been.
We don't negotiate with terrorists. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to negotiate with freedom fighters.
Yeah, now, unfortunately, a cost is going to be paid by those people who are the freedom fighters. Some of them were denied bail. I have not followed up with the Tamara Litch situation, but she was initially denied bail for quite a while. Last I heard, one of the other guys that they were holding was still being denied bail. So they are putting some of these people up against the wall. And the state has not crumbled as a result of this particular protest, and nor should anyone expect it to. I mean, one protest isn't going to end the state, but honestly, 10 of them isn't going to end the state. We have to go further than that. There has to be mass non-cooperation. I think that's what he was touching on where we left off there, where he was advocating that the drivers, instead of going into Ottawa and parking, which is just asking to be targeted, is centralization. That's going to make it easy for the centralized state, because that's how they think. Like, target the leaders, arrest the leaders, and then go after the followers. And that's how they got rid of the protests in the first place. But, if they weren't centralized...
they refused to drive.
Yeah, if instead they just said, you know what, we're just going to stay home. You guys can get your products somehow.
Yeah,
I don't know how it's going to happen.
Super hard to do, though.
Yeah, that is hard to do.
That's incredibly difficult to arrange, where everyone stops delivering to.
You'll never get it.
And I think that's the point of this whole story, is that is the answer. The people are the ones that hold the power over these things, but it's just that you can't get enough people to do it. And why? Because people don't feel responsible for what's
honestly,
going on.
You wouldn't need them all. If you wanted to bring a halt to the supply chain, if all of a sudden 25% of the truck drivers in Canada just decided they were going to stay home, I mean, the products would get to market eventually, but it wouldn't be near like what it is now.
But too many people are saying, well, I got to feed my family.
That's right.
So I'm going to just get the vaccine that I don't want to put into my own body because the government is saying that I can't truck drive unless I do, or...
And it sucks, especially
go and do a different job.
Especially if now truckers do tend to make a decent amount of money, but that doesn't mean that they are good at saving it. So what percentage of them are living paycheck to paycheck? We talked recently about 64% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, apparently now. I don't know how much of that applies to truck drivers. Maybe some of them are better with money than others. But if you've got a big family and you got bills to pay, I don't blame somebody for saying, hey, that's my priority. And unfortunately, the Canadian government has made it very difficult to fund yourself in other ways. Like if they find out that you're getting Bitcoin contributions or something like that, they ban you from Bitcoin exchanges or whatever.
And I think that is the most powerful thing to come out of the trucker protest was that they laid bare exactly what the state is. People tend not to, people tend to think, oh, Canadians, they're like nice and polite. So for that government to be like, here's what we really are. Here's what a government is. When you politically oppose us, we will starve you to death. That is what we do.
And if there was no protest at all, sure, Ian, that didn't make Ottawa take down or Canada take down every single vax and mask mandate. Sure, that's not what the protest did, but it did open those conversations. I was seeing it everywhere.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think it was valuable. I'm not trying to downplay what they did. It was a huge accomplishment. And that's what happens every time you do civil disobedience and non-cooperation. Every time you put the state in the position of having to either look incompetent and look impotent by doing nothing, or, which is what they did for the first 3 weeks, or crack down and use total violence and threats and cutting off bank accounts and, arrests, no bails and all this stuff that they did, then you show them for what they show themselves for what they really are, and all you have to do is point a video camera and show the rest of the world.
And it just doesn't work. Nobody has said this to me once. It doesn't work when you're the only one rattling their cage and you get snuffed out.
Mm-hmm.
It only works when enough people are saying they're going to put their skin on the line. And yeah, maybe there's going to be repercussions, but I'm going to be brave and stand up to these monsters.
And that's really is the tricky part, is getting over that one little step of like, if I'm doing this on my own, I will get targeted. Sure. They have enough resources to destroy me. They do not have enough resources to destroy any percentage of the population doing this.
Yeah, 10%. You would really crush the system.
Yeah, and you have to be willing to face those consequences in order to do this stuff. I mean, the people that were in that protest continuing to and will continue to get pushback from that. I mean, we were talking last week about how the guy who stole the lectern is about to go to prison from the January 6th thing. And
wow.
Yeah, and if you want to protest this stuff, and this is why people don't, is because they are not willing to face even minor consequences. I mean, our ancestors faced death in order to change their world sufficiently so that they could have a little bit less tyranny. And all we have to face is imprisonment. And we are so comfortable that we're just not generally willing to do that.
By the way, I did just look up Tamara Lich. She was granted bail finally after a couple of weeks in jail, I think.
How much did she have to pay?
I don't see an amount to get out. There might have been something like that, but it does say here that she has to leave Ottawa, she must leave Ontario and go home to whatever Alberta residence she has. She must report every day to Ottawa Police about her travel. She cannot communicate with co-defendants, no social media posts, and she is not allowed to go to any further protests.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think the very best thing was that this showed the use case of cryptocurrency, because they cannot stop it.
The number here is 603-283-6160. If you want to weigh in, you can share your thoughts with us on the elites and who's to blame for tyranny. This is Free Talk Live.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Hi, I'm Derek J. I don't want a politician to represent me. To me, government is the idea that one group of people can coerce everyone to comply with an edict or face increasing punishments up to and including death. Despite perhaps the most noble of intentions, the best government services are a far cry from what could be provided for by voluntary interactions. Besides, the people who call themselves the government wage wars and put peaceful people in jail for crimes involving no victims. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, and you're invited. If you want to join us here, you can bring up whatever's on your mind. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live is streaming video every night on the Odyssey platform, which is the best platform for people that love freedom to be on. Because if you had a YouTube channel that's been censored, that you liked, that you wanted to continue watching, you should check Odyssey and see if they made the move over there, because there's a lot of disaffected YouTube creators that have migrated over to Odyssey, and you can be one of them. And you know, if you still have your YouTube channel, you can actually publish to both platforms, and Odyssey has a tool that makes that really easy. Just go to video.freetalklive.com. That'll actually take you right over to our Odyssey channel. You can follow our channel and then use the search to look around and see what else there is to watch. There's, I don't know, something like at least 1 million channels on Odyssey, and that's actually an old number at this point, so I don't know what it currently is. But there's a lot of people who are finding a lot more freedom to express themselves over at Odyssey. It's all based on LBRY, by the way, which is a open source blockchain-based media sharing protocol that is uncensorable. So if you want to really learn about the guts behind Odyssey, you should go to LBRY, LBRY.com, and you can learn more about that there. That's LBRY.com. Otherwise, if you just want to follow our video channel, get over to video.freetalklive.com. Let's go to Dan. He's in Nebraska, and then more about the elites from the story you've got, Bonnie. That's still to come. Dan, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, you guys. I wanted to call in with some things. I guess two things I've really been thinking about this whole elite article and discussion. And I think on one hand, I sort of appreciate the effort the author goes to try to demystify the elites, because I think that for a lot of people, it just sort of becomes this like vague straw man in their mind, and they don't really try to like consider meaningfully what they mean when they're talking about elites.
Mm-hmm.
But on another note, I think that maybe more on the analysis side, I find it kind of problematic that, you know, or I'm not going to say problematic. What I would say is that you guys are assuming that, if people weren't scared, that they would be wanting to support liberty, at least in the case of Microsoft or J.D. Rockefeller, so to speak. But
go ahead.
Hold on. Okay, but people, they see more than just the government as bodies that govern their lives. When a company becomes as big as J.D. Rockefeller's or Microsoft, they have such an effect on the workings of a society that what they're doing is effectively governance. And so, people appreciate that they get, a say in at least part of this equation and a structure by which these, private actors have to respect society.
Okay, well, I was thinking earlier that I didn't make the point enough that there are some people who will, research into this and come to the conclusion that, there's nothing wrong with what the government's doing in ABC situation. And those people are not who I'm talking about. When I'm saying that these people need to wake up and stand up against the government, obviously I'm not talking about the people who, like you, will say, oh, well, I've really thought about this, but we need to go and kill people across the globe to establish U.S. dominance. You said that last night, Dan, and I'm not talking to you. You are just somebody who is chosen the path of evil in my eyes, and I'm not talking about you.
Well, I'll talk to Dan. I do want to address...
No, I'm not talking about him when I'm with this whole conversation we've been having the last hour.
Sure, but I do want to address what you said there, Dan, and that is that you see the state as a way for the people to have a say. That was, I believe, the terminology that you just used in how these things are handled. Right. So what about the say of using their dollars to vote? Because that's normally how you have a say in whether or not you like what a company is doing. If you don't like Microsoft's product, and I don't, then you don't have to spend money with Microsoft. You don't need to have some gang come in and force them to do your bidding.
Yeah, like Rockefeller and I think it was JP Morgan, their companies were really popular. It was the opponents, their competitors, that petitioned the government to break them up. But you're just assuming that there was huge amounts of people coming forward and saying, we want Rockefeller's Standard Oil broken up. And I don't think that's the case. Why were they so popular?
Of the market or something like that, which they had gotten through voluntary means.
Yeah, and that's a really popular myth that the government loves to spread. That the reason we had to break up these companies is because so many people, just ordinary folks, came to us with this problem and told us that we needed to break up this company, and that is never how it happens.
And breaking up one big company like that people might say, oh, well, they had a lot of money, so whatever, leads to things like the FDA going after a small Amish farm in Pennsylvania and saying, you're going to stop your business of selling meat, even though they have zero customers complaining about how they raise their meat, because the people have given them the power to do that.
That's a great point.
What actually happens is the competitors to this company gang up and lobby the government powers to enforce these things on their large competitor, to split them up or to ban them or what have you. That's what actually happens throughout history.
All right, you guys are tag teaming Dan pretty good here. I want to make sure he has a chance to respond. Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, so I can't say that I know every detail about both of those cases, but I think in a broader way, the takeaway maybe that I would be getting from the article doesn't seem to leave room for when people who striking laborers, for instance, want to confront these companies, and because there's no sort of democracy internally, they don't have any power. Voting at the ballot box and at the store are two different tools in the toolbox.
That's violence.
Gets to use both.
That's violence. I mean, when you talk about your tools in the toolbox, you're talking about the violence of the state being used for some sort of political purpose against something or someone who's supposedly unpopular. And it's just, that's the difference between you and those of us on this show, Dan, is you're happy to use violence if it gets your way. And the rest of us say, no, how about you use persuasion? How about you tell people about why this company's bad and why that you should not do business with them and you should, use their competitors, and then let the market decide. But that's not good enough for you because you want to be in control. People like you.
I mean, I guess in my worldview, having more people having access to more levers of power in society would contribute towards equity and power in that society.
Thanks for the call tonight, Dan, but I think Bonnie's point was really spot on about the Amish farmers. Oh yeah, you wanted to create this big regulatory structure to go after the evil mega corporations, and now you're punishing the smallest farms on the planet and telling these people they can't sell raw milk. More coming up here. This is Free Talk Live. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. U.S. President Joe Biden is ordering the release of 1 million barrels of oil per day from the country's strategic reserves in a bid to rein in high energy prices. The price of gas has spiked in recent weeks as the U.S. imposed sanctions against Russia for its invasion of Ukraine.
Our prices are rising because of Putin's action. There isn't enough supply. And the bottom line is, if we want lower gas prices, we need to have more oil supply right now.
Kate Fisher from FSN's Washington Bureau has more on whether other countries may follow the U.S. lead.
The White House is hoping that others will take their lead. In fact, there's a meeting tomorrow in Paris of the International Energy Agency, and they're hoping that their allies there will decide to do the same thing, a collective strategic release of oil reserves. The problem is that China and India are not part of that agency. And of course, the concern from Joe Biden and his allies is that they could be buying up cheaper Russian oil, and they really want to get them onto their side.
Former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence has taken a major step toward running for the White House in 2024 by releasing a 19-page policy agenda casting himself as the future for the Republican Party and the country. FSN's Benji Heyer reports from Washington.
Elections are about the future, is Mike Pence's message, as he looks to distance himself from administrations of the past and move on from previous contests. Mr. Pence served with Donald Trump from 2017 to 2021, but has since taken implicit swipes at the former president, who still insists the 2020 election was stolen from him, and who still may launch his own bid to face Joe Biden again. Mr. Pence withstood pressure from Mr. Trump to overturn the results of the last election, drawing criticism from Trump, yet Mike Pence's focus is, according to his new policy platform, to move the US forward, not backward, to ensure the best days for the greatest nation on earth are yet to come.
The Dow dropped more than 550 points on Thursday, following President Biden's announcement of the largest ever release from the strategic oil reserves. It marked the end of a volatile month of trading in the U.S. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
The last day of trading in March marked the end to the worst quarter for stocks in 2 years. The Dow lost 1.6% on Thursday. The S&P was also down 1.6%, and the Nasdaq closed 1.5% lower. Oil prices dropped 4% to around $103 a barrel after President Biden announced plans to address rising fuel prices by releasing 1 million barrels of oil a day from the US's Strategic Petroleum Reserve over the next 6 months. Tech shares struggled, with Meta down more than 3% and Apple, Microsoft and Amazon all down nearly 2%.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. The number to join us here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And you can bring up whatever's on your mind. Here tonight, it's Ian.
Bigless Mountaineer.
And Bonnie.
You can join us online anytime over at freetalklive.com. Join our social media platform that runs the Mastodon system. Mastodon is open source. It is self-hosted. That means we're running the server. It acts like Twitter, just without the evil mega corporation behind the scenes. So if you want more freedom to express yourself, you can go to social.freetalklive.com. You can have that there. It's free. That's social.freetalklive.com. So we're going to go back to the calls, but first I know, Peakless, you had a comment on Dan's call where he was calling for what he used the term tools. Mm-hmm. He sees regulations, which of course are threats of violence, And what?
Voting.
And voting. He sees the system as just a set of tools for the people to use to get their way when it comes to these companies or other individuals doing whatever. So what are your comments on
and
that?
I think you said something like he wants people to have as many levers as possible.
Of power.
Yeah.
He said.
Yeah. And I can see where he's coming from on that. Like, if we could be certain that this was going to be the people's, that everyone was going to have this ability, I mean, I could see why you would want that to exist. But the fact of the matter is that every time that you give the moral ability to initiate force to any group of people, I mean, not actually, but like socially recognized, as soon as you do that, it is going to centralize power. The fact of the matter is that this is a tool that cannot ever be wielded in a decentralized way.
And it will always be wielded in a just absolutely despicable way. I mean, they will get more and more insane and more violent. I mean, power corrupts.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a fact.
This is the ring of power, the one ring to rule them all. Some tools serve only evil, and the ability to initiate force and threats of violence without any pushback is something that can only ever centralize and lead to further abuse.
Oh, but you could just vote. That's your pushback. You can vote. Vote them out of office and solve everything.
Well, we've seen how that went.
Yeah,
now, didn't
exactly.
we?
Doesn't matter because they're all seeking power. So whoever it is you replace scumbag A with, scumbag B is going to be just as bad.
And scumbag, whichever scumbag is less bad, is still extremely bad to another group of people who aren't you. You're just pointing bullets at those people who don't want scumbag B.
Yeah. Let's go.
And you can even have, one of those coalition governments like in Britain or I guess Germany where, you have 5 or 6 different choices of horrible monsters.
The members of parliament, parliamentary system. Yeah.
Well, I think that he also wanted to mention that there's a separate option that Dan wouldn't answer the question about, which is money instead of violence.
Yeah.
Well, he wants it all, right? Like he could I don't think he disagreed that people could withdraw their funds, but he wants to use violence to sculpt the world in the way that he wants it to be done. And that's typical of people like him and people like Sarah in New Mexico. She's also one of these power seekers. Even though she herself will probably never run for office, she does relish the idea. She sort of gets it feels the power through the system. Like whenever the system has something happen that increases its power, like she was calling about red light cameras last night, and
she even said, well, if more people are getting tickets or more people are dying because of the red light cameras, well, the government gets more power, and that might mean that I get more money in my welfare.
She did say that,
so,
yeah.
Yep, that's what she said.
And she just lives vicariously through the idea that the state can control more. Right, Sarah? Go ahead. What are you calling about tonight? Sarah? Well, she was there. Sarah going once? Sarah going twice? Oh, what a shame. What an introduction. She wasn't even there to receive it. Well, anyway, she'll call back as she tends to do. So
invariably.
Bonnie, there was, I think, a little bit more that you wanted to share from the Foundation for Economic Education story about the elites.
Yes, the last thing that we had read was that he pointed out that the Canadian truckers were showing people how to take their power back, and he says, it's much the same with social media censorship. Facebook's stock recently lost almost 30% of its value in a single day after its total user base declined for the first time in its history.
Hooray!
Imagine tens of millions of American Facebook users making a coordinated effort to delete their accounts on the same day and join Getter, Gab, or MeWe. Not that I think they should really join those other ones, but that would be game over for Facebook. And it would be both morally superior and vastly more effective than trying to regulate Facebook through the political process.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so frustrating when I remember hearing people on the right talking about regulating social media. Oh, well, we need the freedom to be able to post. This needs to be a public forum. Everyone should have the right to post on, because the social media companies were restricting their opinions. And I get that that's frustrating.
Yeah, let's just institutionalize this single company so that no one can ever compete with Facebook.
Or create a regulator to mandate that all of these companies must behave in a certain fashion. And then what's going to happen? Well, your political opponents are going to get a control of the regulator. And then before you know it, it's completely out of what you thought was your control.
Well, and what I love about this suggestion is we were talking about how, like, it's that jump between that one person being able to do the thing and getting enough people to do that thing where it's valuable. Like, okay, well, if we all protest, then they can't put us in jail. If everybody stops paying their taxes, then they won't be able to. Okay.
You're never going to get everybody.
Yeah, it's never going to happen. Whereas that's one of those beautiful examples where one person at a time can just start putting their time, their energy, their attention into not Twitter, not Facebook, not YouTube.
And currently, you can't go to jail for leaving Facebook.
Thankfully, yeah, that's true. Low risk.
One day that might not be the case. I know it sounds crazy, but...
Does anything sound crazy anymore?
Yeah. No, it is a good idea. I mean, I'm not shooting down his idea at all. I mean, if everybody wants to have a turn off Facebook day where they never go back, I think that would be wonderful. I don't think, honestly, though, you need to wait for other people to do it, although that is, of course, the big objection for folks as well. That's where everyone is. Whenever you talk to somebody about leaving Facebook, their number one objection is, well, but everybody's there. Well, not everybody's there, first of all. There's a lot of people who aren't on Facebook. Many people who have become frustrated. I believe our very own Captain Kickass is the most recent host to leave.
Yep, he used to be on Facebook and up until very recently because they wanted to like KYC him.
Yeah, they came at him, and I think Matt, our other our normal Thursday night host.
Matt is because he got like too many strikes.
I wouldn't call Matt normal. That's a bit of an insult.
I think Matt got too many strikes for posting bad things.
Okay, I remember Matt telling me he got the same notice that the captain did, where they said, "Oh, well, you're influencing a lot of people. Your account's really." Your account, they kind of try to pump you up a little bit. They say, oh, your account is really important. You have a lot of people that are connected to you. And so we just want to make sure your account is safe. So we need you to go through this process of, it was like Facebook safety or something. So there was some term for it. And Captain just didn't want to jump through the hoops where it sounded like they were going to mandate a 2-factor login and God knows what else. Maybe he'd have to scan his ID.
Like show his ID, yeah.
Well, and one of the beautiful things is that you don't have to cut cold turkey. Like, you don't have to stop doing Facebook. What you could do, if you've got an alternative to any of these, to Facebook, to Twitter, to, like, okay, let's say every however often you go on YouTube, right? But then, like, one time in 100, you check out Odyssey. You go over to library.
It's creating a new habit.
Right. And just one time in 100 you do that.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you could post this to Twitter, but this time I'm going to put it on Matrix. Just one time in 100. And then 2 times in 100. Instead of checking on Twitter, you go, what's outside my echo chamber?
Mm-hmm.
Just to take a peek at it. And then, 1 time in 10. And then slowly but surely, you can, it snowballs. It makes
You have to be deliberate about it, though.
Yeah.
You have to think about it.
And that's the point where, like, you can do this a little and I can do this a little, and between a lot of us doing this a little, suddenly there's this massive amount of content on these actual free uncensored platforms. I mean, I can't tell you how sick I am of watching YouTube creators say, I want to talk about this, but I can't talk about this.
I always comment to my favorite YouTubers, hey, make an Odyssey channel. I do it all the time because I really want my favorite YouTubers to be able to
express
themselves.
And you could have, like, keep your YouTube channel and make an exclusive for the uncensored platform.
Yeah, say, come on, put a teaser up on YouTube saying, hey, I can't talk about this here, but if you come over to my Odyssey channel, you can watch what I have to say. All right, more coming up here at 603-283-6160. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And joining you in the studio tonight, it's Ian, People's Mountaineer.
And Bonnie.
Of course, you can bring up anything you want. We've been talking about the so-called elites. Are they to blame, or is it the people who are at fault for the tyranny that we face? And Bonnie, you've been sharing a story from the Foundation for Economic Education that is addressing that question. And I think you were towards the end of this piece, but there was a little bit more to share. So let's wrap this up. Go ahead. And, of course, your thoughts are welcome at 603-283-6160.
Says, here's an inconvenient truth. People like Gates, Bezos, and Benioff would be far richer than most people in any political system, whether capitalist, socialist, fascist, or a present combination of all of the above. If thousands of years of history hasn't taught you that yet, then you'll just have to take my word for it. But they only have power over you because they can collude with a government that has that power. If you want your life and your freedom back, you're going to have to change your behavior. Stop electing demagogues who promise to protect you from the elites by making the government even more powerful. Start electing representatives who will do the opposite. And I think that's
his solution.
That's a dumb solution.
Like, yes,
Well, he
yes,
goes on.
yes. No,
Yep.
no.
Well, he goes on. He says, stop demanding more taxes on the rich and instead demand repeal of capital gains taxes, especially on gold, silver, cryptos, and other competition for the Federal Reserve's currency. Stop demanding more regulation of corporations and start using your economic power as consumers to support their competition. Elect people who will outlaw executive branch agencies usurping the legislative and judicial powers. Again, electing people.
Well, that is what most people believe they can do. That is within their wheelhouse. Oh, yeah, I can vote. And he did point out, vote with your dollar, so I certainly support that.
Now, I will say, I'm not going to say that that politics is any kind of a solution. What I will say is this. If you talk about A, the politicians will hear you and they will run on A, and there is a greater chance of A getting done.
Well, it's true that politics is downstream from culture. That's true.
Yeah,
it's like probably 40 years downstream from it, but it is.
Not in New Hampshire.
Yeah, if everyone's talking about regulating the corporations, then people will get elected to regulate corporations.
Sure, you have to change the conversation, that's for sure.
Right. If everyone's talking about, man, they're taxing cryptocurrencies way too much, then someone will at least run on taxing cryptocurrencies less.
Unfortunately, that person appears to be Ted Cruz. So,
well, that's federal level. I don't even like to think about them. I don't even think that the things I talk about will ever trickle into their lives. Those people I have definitely checked out of, but I also, I don't give them more power than.
Well, yeah, and you're right. I mean, we're talking about the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times. What is it that people are talking about? Indeed, that does get some level of attention from these politicians because they do want to be liked. They want to be respected. They want to feel like they're running out in front of a parade. That's the old saying about a politician, right? Like they constantly have their finger up and they lick their finger, stick it up in the air, see which way the wind's blowing, and then go run in that direction because that's what they think is going to be popular. Unfortunately, what's popular is control, whether it be the Democrats looking to control corporations or the people on the right looking to control the Middle East or whatever it is that or the trans people or whatever the issue is at the moment. There's always some group that wants to seek power so they can control some other group, and until we can get away from that mentality and mindset, we are screwed. And the state is going to be with us as long as people want to control other people. And the only way out of that, and I think you touched on it earlier, Bonnie, is to have a deliberate community of people who understand what non-aggression means and what liberty is all about to come together to the same place. And it's a shame that Tom Mullen, who's been here to New Hampshire and I believe spoke at a Liberty Forum at past years, isn't even talking about it.
Well, I think one thing that Lee touched on is about changing the culture. That's important. Is the cool thing to do right now is completely being orchestrated from the government and told to the people what the cool thing to do is. And I hate that. I've always just hated that. The cool thing to do should be decided by the people.
Yeah, government's never cool. What is it that they are trying to be cool with?
Well, like on Instagram, all I see every day is memes,
like the TikTokers, the government TikTok people.
Everybody who's popular on the internet and all the memes even are just like so pro-statist, and it to me it seems obvious that they're like planted and told to do that thing, or they went to college and then they learned that thing.
Sure.
And well,
we know they're actually sponsoring the TikTokers.
But at least if some people like us are out there saying, I'm a regular person, I love myself and think I'm pretty cool, and guess what? I don't think there should be a government. Then some people are like, oh, well, people who are my age and my friends, like, they don't hear that from people that look like me or our age or anything ever. And I think it's important to try to change the culture just with your own personality and words.
Yeah, that's always one fun thing is every time I see a picture of a libertarian meetup, you can't tell. You can't tell from looking at them that they're any different from anyone. Yeah. It's just regular people that have figured out what government is. And I really think that the roots of this are very simple and very, very deep. People hate uncertainty. They're just really, really uncomfortable.
Fear of change.
Yeah, they're afraid of change, and they're afraid of not knowing, and they're afraid of doing the wrong thing. And if there's someone from the top down with a gun forcing everyone to do the same thing, then they can feel comfortable.
Oh, look at the pushback on independence.
Everyone's doing the thing that I'm doing. Then they don't have to worry, am I doing the wrong thing? Because you're doing the same thing everyone else is doing because someone with a gun is making it happen. Whereas if you just plumb the depths of your soul, face this nightmare yourself, and go, you know what? I don't know. There are things I don't know. There is the unknown. It's part of reality, and I'm okay with that. I don't know if what I'm doing is the right thing. It's just the best thing I can come up with, and I'm okay with that. And I don't know if you doing this different thing is actually the right thing, and I'm okay with that. It might be that you're doing the right thing and I'm doing something stupid, and I'm okay with that.
That's a great message. It seems to go against human nature, though.
I don't think it goes against our nature. I think it's a matter of virtue and maturity. I mean, it's one of those.
Well, the state wants to keep people immature.
Absolutely.
I definitely think that too.
Yeah, I don't think it's against our nature to grow up, but not everyone gets to.
That's a good point. Yeah, the state wants you to be reliant on them. They want you to look to them for everything. And so a person who's been trained to be frightened about what is to come is going to look to the state, right? This thing that stays stagnant. It's the state. That's the definition of it, right?
Yeah.
Just stays put. It doesn't move. You can count on it. Well, until it crumbles in and its money becomes worthless. But people believe certain things about it. They believe it's going to be there for them when they turn 65 or whatever the arbitrary age will be. Eventually, they can change that too, for Social Security. But the state will be there for me when no one else will. I don't need friends if I have the state.
It's kind of funny that you started this whole conversation about maturity, because here's the last paragraph. It says, these suggestions that he brought up share two things in common. One, they are realistically attainable, and two, they are less emotionally satisfying than trying to stick it to the elites. Children make decisions based on their emotions. Adults make them based on reason. For over 100 years, you've demanded society be run based on the childish notion that anything about reality that displeases you can be rectified by giving the government the power to prohibit it, mandate it, or subsidize it. Playing this sucker's game has resulted in people like Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates being poised to literally rule the world. It's time to put aside childish things.
Bravo.
Yeah, and the thing about the buildup of state power is that it's a feedback loop. And like any feedback loop, you can break it at any point. And if you reach the point where you're like, okay, here's where this feedback loop relies on me, for whatever it is, to go look at Facebook, to not speak up at the proper time, to pay my taxes, to do whatever it is, and you go, you know what? Not this time. This time I'm going to put a little bit of sand in this gear. I'm going to slow it down just a little bit. I'm going to put my attention to something that actually matters to me instead of being part of what's socially expected.
Imagine if everyone was doing that. Their little bits would build up like crazy. It's like what he was saying about Facebook. If just a few people were cutting off their usage of Facebook, even, or not a few, like everyone was cutting off just a little bit of their...
Well, and you don't have to.
Yeah, not everyone, you know.
You just have to let it snowball. Get that one little ball rolling, and soon you've got an avalanche.
The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It really only takes a few people who are willing to stand up to make some serious changes. There's more coming up. Hour 3's on the way. Free Talk Live. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com. Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. U.S. President Joe Biden is ordering the release of 1 million barrels of oil per day from the country's strategic reserves in a bid to rein in high energy prices. The price of gas has spiked in recent weeks as the U.S. imposed sanctions against Russia for its invasion of Ukraine.
Our prices are rising because of Putin's action. There isn't enough supply. And the bottom line is, if we want lower gas prices, we need to have more oil supply right now.
Kate Fisher from FSN's Washington Bureau has more on whether other countries may follow the U.S. lead.
The White House is hoping that others will take their lead. In fact, there's a meeting tomorrow in Paris of the International Energy Agency, and they're hoping that their allies there will decide to do the same thing, a collective strategic release of oil reserves. The problem is that China and India are not part of that agency. And of course, the concern from Joe Biden and his allies is that they could be buying up cheaper Russian oil, and they really want to get them onto their side.
Former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence has taken a major step toward running for the White House in 2024 by releasing a 19-page policy agenda casting himself as the future for the Republican Party and the country. FSN's Benji Heyer reports from Washington.
Elections are about the future, is Mike Pence's message, as he looks to distance himself from administrations of the past and move on from previous contests. Mr. Pence served with Donald Trump from 2017 to 2021, but has since taken implicit swipes at the former president, who still insists the 2020 election was stolen from him and who still may launch his own bid to face Joe Biden again. Mr. Pence withstood pressure from Mr. Trump to overturn the results of the last election during criticism from Trump, yet Mike Pence's focus is, according to his new policy platform, to move the US forward, not backward, to ensure the best days for the greatest nation on earth are yet to come.
The Dow dropped more than 550 points on Thursday, following President Biden's announcement of the largest ever release from the strategic oil reserves. It marked the end of a volatile month of trading in the U.S. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
The last day of trading in March marked the end to the worst quarter for stocks in 2 years. The Dow lost 1.6% on Thursday. The S&P was also down 1.6%, and the Nasdaq closed 1.5% lower. Oil prices dropped 4% to around $103 a barrel after President Biden announced plans to address rising fuel prices by releasing 1 million barrels of oil a day from the US's Strategic Petroleum Reserve over the next 6 months. Tech shares struggled, with Meta down more than 3% and Apple, Microsoft and Amazon all down nearly 2%.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. The trial is underway in Virginia of El-Shafi El-Sheikh, the British-born ISIS fighter accused of murdering journalists and aid workers in Syria. He's one of the 4 so-called Beatles, whose English accents could be heard on videos depicting gruesome executions carried out by ISIS. Edward Tuzansky is a senior fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute, a think tank in Philadelphia. Virginia, and he questions whether the Virginia court is really the right place for El-Sheikh to face justice.
We tie ourselves in knots of our own making in the West. We don't treat these individuals as illegal enemy combatants who have violated the laws of war. The rules of law are pretty clear. Under Geneva, you have to wear a uniform with rank insignia. You have to report through an identified line of command. You cannot hide your weapons, and you cannot target non-combatants. They violate every one of those rules, yet we give them the same rights and protections as you would someone in a criminal court of law.
But efforts at the U.S. detention center in Guantanamo Bay to deal with suspected al-Qaeda terrorists outside the established norms have not gone so well, with now 3 separate presidents grappling with legal complexities there. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. President Biden orders the release of 1 million barrels of oil per day from the country's strategic reserves in a bid to rein in high energy prices. Former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence takes a major step toward a possible White House bid in 2024. And the Dow drops more than 550 points to mark the end of a volatile trading month in the U.S. That's the latest Feature Story News. Ira Spitzer reporting.
Saying that a few images of displaced refugees would probably do the trick, Americans admitted this week that they could probably be talked into another war. Citizens nationwide told reporters that if they were to see a blurry satellite image of potential nuclear weapons or footage of an evil militant group, they could easily see themselves getting on board with another major military effort.
I'm not saying I'd be gung-ho about it right away, but if they called it something like a concentrated military operation or something other than war at first, I could see myself warming up to the idea. Honestly, just hearing a top official on TV say something like patriotic duty might clinch it.
And in this week's op-ed pages, an area man finds it's just his luck to lose thousands at the blackjack tables every night for the past few weeks. In other news, a senator tries submitting a rejected bill to the Canadian Parliament. What Mom would have wanted is evolving over the course of funeral planning. And a new report finds you're actually saving money with a Franklin Skate Center roller rink membership.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the third hour of the program. Coming up, we're going to find out what is the World Government Summit. Not to be confused with the World Economic Forum, but they did have Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum speak at the World Government Summit. So this is a completely other organization that you discovered, Peakless. With you in the studio, by the way, it is Ian,
Peakless Mountaineer,
and Bonnie.
And the phones are open if you want to join us here as we kick off the third hour. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Whether you want to comment on what we've spent the first 2 hours discussing, which has for the most part been the elites or the people, the average folks, who's really to blame for the situation in which we find ourselves with tyrannical governments in this world. And if you want to weigh in on that, you're certainly welcome to do so. In fact, I believe that's why Brenda is on the line here listening to K-Talks in Arizona. Brenda, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hey, you're on here.
So I was just listening to you guys talking on my drive home, and I pulled over to call you.
Thanks.
So first of all, I'm a live and let live kind of person.
Me too.
I want to live on a farm. I want to raise my own food. I want to do my own thing, and I just want to be left alone.
Nice.
I don't want the government deciding what can or can't be done for me or somebody else. I completely disagree with any kind of government oversight on abortion. I don't personally agree with it, but that's me. Who am I to say what somebody else can or can't do?
Yep.
Agreed.
With their own health and health care.
Your body.
I mean,
do what you want with it.
Correct. I don't like, I mean, I get that we need property taxes to fund certain things, and I get we need taxes to fund certain things. But if we all banded together in a live, let live society where, you know, it's okay if you want to wear a ponytail as a man, and it's okay if you want to wear beads, and it's okay if you want to go live over there and be naked all the time. I don't care.
It's also okay if you don't want to pay taxes. I mean, taxes, you talked about funding certain things. Whatever it is that needs to be funded, I think would be funded without the use of force, which is what backs up taxes. If you don't pay property taxes, men with guns will come and throw you out of your own home, or what you thought was your own home.
In prison.
And they'll sell your home right out from under you and give it to one of their more obedient serfs.
Correct.
We don't need
I agree
that.
with what you said, the way you said that. Yes.
Yeah, we don't need that. I mean, whether it's fire protection, whether it's clearing the roads, whether it's building the roads, or whatever it is that the local governments might provide that is actually of some value. Anything that's of value, people buy it.
It's done by businesses, and the government just is a middleman that hires a business. Why can't we just hire people ourselves?
Well,
that makes sense to me.
And I did want to touch on the topic of abortion since you brought it up. This is one of those ones where it's really difficult for us to figure out where life begins or where it ends. And different people some people believe that a fetus is a human being. I'm not one of them, but I can respect the perspective. And if that is true, then the human being needs to be protected from murder. And I think that the solution here is very simple. Those people can live together.
Mm-hmm.
You believe that this is a human being that needs to be protected. Okay, you stay over here. That is the value of this community. They hold that life begins at conception. Now, I'm going to, all things being equal, I'm going to live over here where we believe that a human life starts at your first breath. And we will protect human life from that point forward.
And there's some
Seems reasonable.
But it's just like right now I'm staring at a church, and so this is what made it come to my mind, is that I disagree with that building and that structure of having to have a spiritual relationship with any entity, whatever you call it. I disagree with that because that's a business. That is not just like-minded people getting together. That's people funding a business to pay a man to stand up and talk, and to pay somebody to cook meals on a whatever and potluck. And I don't believe in that structure. I have my own belief systems that don't require a structure, and I still get together with like-minded people.
Sure.
When on a casual, whenever we want to kind of basis, nothing structured. So I disagree with that, but they're perfectly willing. I don't have any problem with them doing it. I'm just not going to go to it.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's the
That's
solution.
just what you were saying. You go over here and you do your thing, and we'll be over here and we'll do our thing. And I kind of think that's how the states might have started back in the day, is that we felt like we wanted to be over here with a lot less of you people telling us what to do. And Arizona has been a live and let live. I've been here 22 years, and I left the commie-fied place on the West Coast. I left that's my birthplace, and I left it 22 years ago as an adult to come out here and raise my family in a relaxed place. And I'm kind of not happy with what's happening in the government here, and it's like, I came here to get away from it, and now it seems to have followed me.
Well, it turns out all governments are not live and let live. I mean, as much as, we're here in New Hampshire, as much as we like the state motto of live free or die, it's just a motto. They don't adhere to it in any way, shape, or form, at least as far as the state.
A lot of the people do.
Yeah, the people do, but the state, again, whatever we're talking about, whether it's the national government or the state governments, it attracts the power hungry. It attracts the easily corrupted. And you have them doing violence against peaceful people. And so, I mean, the truth is, Arizona, look at the Phoenix area where you've got the psychopath sheriff who, I don't think he's in office now, but for many years was putting peaceful people behind bars for absolutely no, you had some marijuana, or you walked across a line in the sand or whatever. Now you got to go live in Tent City. I mean, this is psycho stuff.
Well, and we're at a very different time now as when this was all made. So, like at the beginning, you had a lot of people coming to the New World to escape government, and then then we set up a government here. So you had a lot of people moving west to escape government. And like at this point, we can't do that anymore, and we have to confront the fact that we exist. There is a kind of people that exist in this world that want to be left alone. And sure, there's Sarah and her kind of people that don't ever want to leave anyone alone. And if you guys just go over there, and we'll go over here,
it's time to break it up at this point.
But there's people out there that want people what they should do and not do. And there are people who thrive on that. And I think we have a lot of them coming in the southern border. And I think we have some demo rats that are thriving on the fact that somebody wants to be told when to get up, when to go to sleep, where to go to work, and how to live and how to eat. And here's your little pittance. We're going to keep you safe, and we're going to but just vote for us. And I think that because they may have come from countries that have been tyrannical, that have been do what we tell you and there's no other choice, when you grow up with that, that's what you expect. And I think, sadly, we're raising a generation right now who talks about wanting freedom but wants everything governed.
Yeah, I don't know if I would jump to the conclusion about immigrants in that way. I think a lot of people that move here are looking for more freedom.
I think that Californians moving to Arizona may be doing that because they literally grew up in a place. I mean, not you, Brenda. It doesn't sound like you did.
No, but I'm going to tell you that we have a local dive bar that just turned so bleached and so sports club and so electronic. And he said, I don't give two SIs about the locals. I can't stand them.
Weird.
I hope they don't come back to my bar. And we're like, hope you brought a lot of your friends because this place used to gross thousands a night because of the locals that you just cut off.
That's insane.
And he announced that he's from California and he wants nothing to do with locals. Why do you move someplace and then you don't want to blend in with the locals? I have lived in 2 southern border states now my entire life, and I will tell you that I deal with the immigrants, the people that are coming from the southern border, personally and daily. California was even worse. But I will tell you that anybody who's telling you that they're just coming here for a peaceful thing, when I had my first child as a single mom, I used to sit at the welfare office, and I would be told I had a 90-day wait to get benefits, while somebody else was walking out with benefits that day that didn't speak English.
Well, I wonder what their whole entire situation was, because it couldn't just be that they spoke English. I used to be dating immigrant, and I would look into getting him welfare, and it was really, really hard. He was illegal.
Yeah, and obviously if you're at the welfare office, you're going to find the worst of the worst as far as people is concerned. Brenda, thanks for the call. There's more coming up on Free Talk Live.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open here. You can join us, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Talking about freedom, as we are wont to do here on Free Talk Live. With you tonight, you've got Ian.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Bonnie.
We're going to get into the World Government Summit. Peakless Mountaineer discovered yet another group of government corporate bigwigs meeting together to plot their continued domination of the planet. We can talk about them coming up here, but first we go to your phone calls and thoughts. He's Law Dog calling us from Michigan, listening to WKHM in Jackson. Go ahead, Law Dog.
Thanks for taking my call, yes, Ian. Gretchen got on the radio today. She's getting awful greedy. The big government bailout money came in, and it's burning a hole in her purse, and she wants to get rid of it and disperse it as soon as possible. And her excuse for this is that inflation is running so rapid, so quickly, and getting so high that we have to spend it now instead of waiting to spend it wisely. But you have to remember, half of the state unemployment disbursements were fraudulent, and there's convicted felons that were hired as extra help, basically to help themselves. And there's one young lady that has about $1.3 million in benefits that hasn't even been prosecuted yet. Okay. And it's just really, really fishy on something like that. But I want to congratulate you guys for trying to succeed, from the union.
Oh, secede.
Yes, there's a different word there. So we failed at seceding, but we would love to succeed at seceding. But sadly, that did not happen this time out.
Yet.
But secession is a little different from success.
Well, we have a situation here in the Upper Peninsula. It's God's country. It's a lot like the White Mountain area. It's just beautiful. In Rogers Lake there, although I've never been there, they have the Porcupine Mountains in Marquette, and they're up there by Lake Superior.
Okay.
And these people are about 600 miles from Detroit, where all the state money goes in there. And if there's anybody that should try to separate themselves from the Lower Peninsula in the state of Michigan. It should be the Upper Peninsula. They should try to declare statehood and put in their own secession plan.
Yeah, somebody, it might have actually been you, Law Dog. Somebody else brought this up, that the upper part of Michigan is a really unique part of the country, and it's nothing like the rest of Michigan. It seems like lots of states have that.
Upper
like
New York,
California,
for instance.
Upper California is a lot different. It just sucks to be controlled by the big cities where everybody is sipping brainwashed juice, and then you're trying to stay away from those people, but you can't escape their reach.
Is anyone talking about that, Law Dog, in Michigan? Is there any kind of movement to separate the Upper Peninsula?
No, we just have automatons that are just these people are sheep. They're they're just
they've accepted their
here.
place in line and they're going to stay in it.
Well, and
they're just chicken poop. They don't have any guts. Well, you guys have the guts, and I admire you for it. Keep up the good work, and thanks for being on air.
My pleasure, Law Dog.
I suggest to you to bring this up the next time people are complaining about Gretchen Whitmer is hey, we could just secede. We could secede from the rest of Michigan, be our own little thing.
The problem, of course, and again, thank you, Law Dog, for the call, these internal state secession movements that want to cut up the state into more than one state, they want to join the Union. That's the problem. They want to be able to say goodbye to Michigan and then be the 51st state, which, of course, would then require the federal government to approve of that.
This is why I was divided on the Donbass region of Ukraine, because I'm like, you want to secede from Ukraine? That's awesome.
Yeah.
And join the Russian Federation.
Yeah.
Not awesome.
They haven't said that yet.
Oh, no.
It's really hard to know.
They've publicly declared that they are seeking membership in the Russian Federation.
Well, I still support if people are willing to. People are saying that's what they want, but it seems to me like it's just the government saying what the people who live there want.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to know.
And I mean, it's still better. I mean, if you're is it as good as being your own state? No. Is it better than being part of a state that's already part of this federal union? Yeah.
Yep, cutting it smaller is always going to be better, I think. Well, as far as America, I'm
if the
not talking
U.S.
about
federal
Donbass.
government were to allow it to happen, because you would have to get their permission, right?
Yeah, in that situation, you would need their permission to join.
Right. Unlike what we were talking about here in New Hampshire, which is to just say, we're out. The entire place known as New Hampshire, we are leaving. We're going back to being an independent country, which is what we were before the United States thing. So we're just going to go back to that. We're going to change the name of the governor to the president again, because that's the way it was. And we're going back to that. See you later. Have a nice day. We don't have to ask your permission. It's not in the Constitution to mandate that states have to ask permission to leave. There's no prohibition on us saying goodbye, so goodbye.
Well, they would definitely make it difficult to actually leave if you didn't get their permission.
We're not going to ask
for reference.
Yeah, that's what they always say, but we're willing to. I think a lot of us are willing to take that chance and go a peaceful route. That's the intention here. But there, you don't ask for permission, because when you ask for permission, you're asking to fail at that point. I mean, it's guaranteed they're going to say no.
Yeah. Yeah, the nice part about it is if New Hampshire managed to wrestle loose, or at least, even if it was provoking the response of saying, no, you're absolutely not allowed to leave, and we're going to station our troops in here, well, that is at least enough to make Texas go, oh, yeah? Well, we're leaving too. And maybe Florida's going to be next and say, you know what? We don't want to be part of this either.
Yeah, you got to show the way. Somebody's got to lead this lead us down this road. Lead somebody down that road.
You can't spread yourself too thin if you're trying to oppress everyone. And if there's too many people that want to leave,
too many fronts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true. Well, plus they're already spread thin with their troops all around the world, so they'd have to bring some troops home or something like that in order to. And I guess they did do that with Afghanistan. So.
Yeah, maybe they'll close down one of these. How many wars are we in?
I don't even know. There was speaking of people migrating for freedom and the liberty movement here in New Hampshire, the Free State NH posted an interesting infographic today that is from the Republican Party. They looked at the migrants into New Hampshire, and somehow they got I guess they looked at voter registration. That must be how they did this.
Yeah, I was hoping I was part of it in a way, like because I saw that Texas was one of the states that was one of the top 5 incoming, and I was like, oh, one of those is me.
Yeah, you must have been
because I've registered to vote.
Right.
I don't think I did anything. Oh yeah, and I got a driver's license here.
Yeah, so on the previous state of residence, they found that, of course, the majority of people are coming from Massachusetts. But the second most popular state to leave to move to New Hampshire was Florida.
And I keep seeing their plates.
Awesome.
And I keep saying it's weird. There's no way that they're snowbirds because they're here in the
wintertime.
Wintertime.
So I thought that was interesting. And apparently there's
more. I want more.
And apparently there's like 30-to-1 Republican to Democrat migration.
Yeah, so they're coming from Massachusetts, but they're the
the right-wingers. Not that they care about freedom, but anyway, more coming up here. This is Free Talk Live.
Carl Wattner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Wattner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. U.S. President Joe Biden is ordering the release of 1 million barrels of oil per day from the country's strategic reserves in a bid to rein in high energy prices. The price of gas has spiked in recent weeks as the U.S. imposed sanctions against Russia for its invasion of Ukraine.
Our prices are rising because of Putin's action. There isn't enough supply. And the bottom line is, if we want lower gas prices, we need to have more oil supply right now.
Kate Fisher from FSN's Washington Bureau has more on whether other countries may follow the U.S. lead.
The White House is hoping that others will take their lead. In fact, there's a meeting tomorrow in Paris of the International Energy Agency, and they're hoping that their allies there will decide to do the same thing, a collective strategic release of oil reserves. The problem is that China and India are not part of that agency. And of course, the concern from Joe Biden and his allies is that they could be buying up cheaper Russian oil, and they really want to get them onto their side.
Former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence has taken a major step toward running for the White House in 2024 by releasing a 19-page policy agenda casting himself as the future for the Republican Party and the country. FSN's Benji Heyer reports from Washington.
Elections are about the future, is Mike Pence's message, as he looks to distance himself from administrations of the past and move on from previous contests. Mr. Pence served with Donald Trump from 2017 to 2021, but has since taken implicit swipes at the former president, who still insists the 2020 election was stolen from him and who still may launch his own bid to face Joe Biden again. Mr. Pence withstood pressure from Mr. Trump to overturn the results of the last election during criticism from Trump, yet Mike Pence's focus is, according to his new policy platform, to move the US forward, not backward, to ensure the best days for the greatest nation on earth are yet to come.
The Dow dropped more than 550 points on Thursday, following President Biden's announcement of the largest ever release from the strategic oil reserves. It marked the end of a volatile month of trading in the U.S. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
The last day of trading in March marked the end to the worst quarter for stocks in 2 years. The Dow lost 1.6% on Thursday. The S&P was also down 1.6%, and the Nasdaq closed 1.5% lower. Oil prices dropped 4% to around $103 a barrel after President Biden announced plans to address rising fuel prices by releasing 1 million barrels of oil a day from the US's Strategic Petroleum Reserve over the next 6 months. Tech shares struggled, with Meta down more than 3% and Apple, Microsoft and Amazon all down nearly 2%.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. And you can take control of the airwaves at 603-283-6160. Tonight, you've got Ian,
Faithless Mountaineer,
and Bonnie.
Now, maybe it's not time for independence yet, but we want to get that conversation started, and we did successfully do that here in New Hampshire with a piece of legislation that was heard a few weeks ago, CACR 32. You can go to nhexit.us and learn more about what happened with that. Sadly, it did not get voted in, which if it had, it would have put it to the ballot. It would have put it to the question to the people and asked them what they think about independence, whether or not New Hampshire should move forward with a peaceful declaration of independence. And we just had somebody calling in from Michigan, Upper Peninsula, who would love to see that area secede from Michigan, but he admitted that there's no movement for that. There's no talk about it. And that's the thing. You've got to...
Turns out they don't want to risk finding out that no one would sign the social contract if you had it.
Well, we've got to get that conversation started. And if you're into the ideas of liberty, if you care about freedom, you really ought to consider migration. You ought to move to a place, and you were hitting on this earlier, Peakless Mountaineer, and that is get to be around people that are like-minded. Now, I'm not going to jump to the conclusion and get all celebratory about the fact that a bunch of Republicans are moving to New Hampshire. But that's what we were talking about here, the piece of infographic that was provided by the Free State Project that they got from the Republican National Committee, apparently, that shows that in the last, I presume, year, I'm not sure what the time frame is of this, 2020 maybe, I don't know. Anyway, recently, some number of people have migrated to New Hampshire. A lot of people have been moving around the country during the whole COVID thing, as we were talking with a caller from Arizona about people leaving California and going to other places.
Well, there's an old joke that a libertarian loses half their friends every 4 years. And at the moment, because you get a new president, because the other party comes into power,
I see,
and all of a sudden, all of your Democrats are no longer anti-war, or all of a sudden, all of your Republicans are no longer small government.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like right now, for the time being, the people on the right are more inclined to actually be free. For now.
That's what they say, at least. And the good news about this, though, what they're saying here in this survey is, or this data that they've gotten from voter registrations, is that 98.2% apparently of the people who have migrated here and registered to vote are registered as either Republican or undeclared.
Nice.
And 1.8% are registered as Democrat.
Of the people moving?
The people who've moved in and who've registered to vote. We don't know about people who haven't registered to vote.
I didn't notice there was that big of a difference.
Did they cut up the undeclared to versus Republican?
Yes, 31.4% undeclared and 66.8% Republican. Or at least I presume they mean undeclared. They say unknown.
I am technically one of these people probably in the statistics, and I'm technically a Republican also, but it's because I wanted to be able to vote for my friends.
In the primary
when they were running Republican. So I think a lot of those people might be that.
Well, I don't want to jump to a conclusion about how many of these people actually care about freedom. I would not say that, they're Republicans, so they care about freedom. No, I'm not going to jump to that conclusion at all.
Well, no, I'm saying they might not be Republicans.
No, I get what you're saying. What I wanted to point out about this is the Free Staters who are here in New Hampshire, by and large, tend to run as Republicans when they run for local, for state reps, for instance. And we know that most people don't think about what they vote for. They just vote party line. So the fact that these people are moving here are Republicans doesn't matter whether they really care about freedom or not. As long as they're your typical Republicans who vote party line, they're going to end up casting votes for libertarians running as Republicans. So ultimately, this is good news.
It'd be nice if they care about liberty too.
That would be nice.
But even if they don't, and in New Hampshire in particular, the Democratic Party are the more oppressive party.
They are.
They are the larger state, more regulation. They're the ones pushing for a state tax. No one wants that.
That's right. And they're the ones who have been pushing for COVID mandates and things like that. They're going to have a tough time getting reelected this year because they have been insane about COVID. They still are insane. So anyway, I see this as a good indicator. The Free State Project put it out there to kind of bust the myth that a bunch of Democrats are moving here from Massachusetts.
Yeah, I hear that too, and I never knew how much truth there was to that. Oh, a bunch of Democrats are moving here. I would just think, why would they want to do that?
That's the thing. They're not.
Yeah.
It's true that people are moving from Massachusetts, but not the Democrats. So that doesn't mean they aren't status, but they're less likely to be the worst sort of Massachusetts residents.
Yeah, and I will say that the reason that that's not the case is because they didn't extend the Boston-Washington corridor by building a
rail.
Yeah. If they'd have built a rail up here, we absolutely would get a huge influx of big state Democrats from Massachusetts and so on.
Let's go to the phones here. Sarah is on the line with us now in New Mexico. Sarah, go ahead.
Oh, yes. So our state, we're going to start putting sensors and alarms and lights to help the people, the drivers that are entering the freeway the wrong way and causing accidents. They're doing head-on collisions while they're drunk, on the freeway. And this has happened over and over again. And it turns out we're going to learn the technology from Arizona. So these are the technology that they had in Arizona for many years.
Cool.
And then they finally decided we need something like this.
How do they work? How do they sense people going the wrong way, and what do they do?
Well, I heard just a little bit about it. I haven't researched it really a lot, but I think once they enter the freeway, there's lights that go on, and there's a sounding alarm. I don't know if it alerts the police or what department, but it's supposed to alert the driver that they're going entering the freeway on an exit. That's what's going on. So they're so drunk.
It sounds crazy, but it used to happen all the time in San Antonio, and you'd hear about it, and you'd be like, what? How did that happen? And I don't think it's always that they're drunk.
It is disappointing to hear that this is a big enough problem that it needs to be solved, but I'm in favor of it. Hey, let them know this is the wrong way.
Well, the thing about it is that New Mexico, it's taken them like so many years of this going on forever and ever, and they're like, hey, we got a problem, and maybe we got to do something. And they're like, well, Arizona's been doing all this sensor technology. Arizona is a home for the Redflex. So I was told that it was like a
Redflex?
Redflex red light camera company.
Oh, those people. Yeah, see, that's a bad kind of technology, the red light cameras, which punish people and try to generate revenue for the state.
And I wish people weren't going to be robbed for these sensors to be put in either.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you for the call tonight, Sarah. I appreciate it. We talked a little bit about road building earlier, suggesting that, hey, if that's what people want, then that's what they'll get.
And I think that this kind of technology would be used on private roads.
Absolutely.
If that's what we had.
And it probably would have been used 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is probably technology that's relatively simple, right? You're just
alarms and lights
radars
flashing.
Or whatever, like to detect whether the car is going the wrong direction, and then whatever to alert that person. Of course, if they're S-face drunk, they're going to be like, "Oh, am I at an amusement park?" Or whatever. The other point I wanted to make about this migration, these numbers about people coming into New Hampshire, is we don't know how many people are leaving. Right? Like, we don't know how many of the Democrats are getting fed up, because we know that very few Democrats are coming in. So it seems like a fair presumption to think that maybe some Democrats are leaving.
Well,
New
and
Hampshire.
I mean, you got Boston right there.
Sure, or Vermont.
Yeah, exactly.
New York.
Yeah,
Not very far.
If you like the city, go that way. If you like the country, go that way. It's right over there. Similar culture. They're going to love you there. It's going to be a great time for you.
Yes, exactly. So if you care about freedom, you love the ideas of liberty, you really ought to start planning to migrate to New Hampshire. And you can learn more at 101reasonsfilm.com. It's the 101 Reasons That Liberty Lives in New Hampshire. It's a great little documentary. It's a little old at this point, but those reasons are still solid. So head over to 101reasonsfilm.com. We got more coming up, including the World Government Summit. Yuck. It's Free Talk Live. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after PorcFest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the ForkFest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the ForkFest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. forkfest.party. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Hi, I'm Montel Williams. Most of you know me as a talk show host, but I'm also an author, actor, single father of 4, a fitness writer, avid snowboarder, and I'm also a medical marijuana patient. Like many of the million people who are living with multiple sclerosis, I'm in pain every single day. And sometimes my nerves are so raw that if you brushed up against me in an elevator, I'd scream. I can't sleep at night from the pain, and sometimes the spasms in my legs are so intense they will wake me up throughout the night. I've tried the strongest prescription medications available, and I'm going to tell you, they do not work. In fact, they leave me in a stupor, and most of the time, it's impossible to even live your life. Now, I've tried medical marijuana, and I'm going to tell you something, it works. If you'd like more information about medical marijuana, you can contact the Marijuana Policy Project at mpp.org or call 1-877-JOIN-MPP.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Should you be able to earn an honest living free from senseless government interference? The Institute for Justice thinks so. That's why we've spent years defending hard-working men and women from pointless government regulations. Nationwide, IJ has created opportunity by reducing government power, but there is still more work to be done. Visit our website today at ij.org. Let IJ take care of the government so you can take care of your business.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Moments remain for you. If you want to join us, you can. The number is 603-283-6160. By the way, I do want to say thank you to Barry Swenson, who is a supporter of our Free Talk Live Amps Patreon, which you can join as well. Barry did $5 a month over as a silver level supporter at amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. You can join it there, and we appreciate it. It helps us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. So if you like what we do and you want us to keep doing it and do it bigger and more radio stations, we can do that. We've got over 190 great stations that air the show at various different times throughout the week, and Barry and the rest of the amps are helping us expand that. So head over to amps.freetalklive.com. As we get into the World Government Summit, not to be confused with the World Economic Forum, which there's probably some crossover between the two groups, but you discovered this group somehow, Peakless Mountaineer. What happened?
Gosh, I think that was We Are Change was covering it. Yeah. And
Luke Rudowski.
Yep. And he does great work over there. And I was surprised I'd never heard of this thing because I'm usually pretty good at like, okay, well, the Trilateral Commission's over here, and they have this overlap with the
Bilderberg,
with the Bilderbergs, and with the Council on Foreign Relations. Right. And over here we have the Davos crew with their World Economic Forum. So I'm usually pretty good at this stuff. And here's this thing. It's called the World Government Summit.
It's been around since 2013.
And I'd never heard of the darn thing.
Me either, until you brought it up earlier.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, we really are entering into such a weird time. Because, I mean, like, if anyone out there has ever heard Klaus Schwab speak, like, he honestly comes off like a comic book supervillain.
Yeah.
He really does. And
have you seen the pictures of him in that creepy outfit too?
I haven't. I really want to.
See if I can find
I tried
one for
finding it, and my Google foo is terrible. But yeah, I mean, and here we have. It's like, oh, the idea of a world government is a crazy conspiracy theory. Yeah, not so much. So, let's see. This one's from GulfBusiness.com. Dubai World Government Summit 2022 begins today, aims to shape next global agenda. Nothing terribly ominous about that. They're just, trying to shape the global agenda. Government officials and experts from around the world have convened in Dubai at the World Government Summit 2022 to address some of the challenges currently facing humanity. The WGS 2022, held at Expo 2020, Dubai on March 29th to 30, will host more than 4,000 individuals from 190 countries. Leaders, senior government officials, heads of international organizations, and global experts will participate in sessions to discuss and highlight global challenges and their potential solutions.
They claim here they're expecting 25,000 attendees.
Wow.
So I don't know if it's 4,000 is the... Oh, wait. 25,000 attendees and then 25,000 virtual attendees, 640 plus speakers, and more. 200 media organizations. This is a big event.
That's huge.
Lots of money being poured into this thing.
Yeah, and 190 countries, that's almost all of them. Yeah. So, wow. And I've never heard of this frickin' thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not being marketed to you.
Ain't that just the case?
You're not invited.
They just want to control every aspect of your life.
Although, to their credit, and I don't want to give them a lot of credit, they do appear to have had live streams. Now, I don't know if they streamed every presentation, because apparently there were 995 sessions and workshops. So there's a ton of different tracks. Like whenever you're at a conference, there's always different, things that you can go and do at the same time. But some of this stuff, there's video of it. So that's at least good.
And this really does just showcase a major change that has been slowly occurring over the years of, there are all these things that they used to, quietly in a back smoky room talk about. And more they're just bringing it forward, so that you get, I mean, it's very much a boil the frog slowly kind of situation. Like, okay, here's this terrible thing that we're going to let you know a little bit of, and then a little bit more of, until we reach the point where, well, of course, don't you want to have a global government summit?
Don't you want to own nothing and be happy?
Right?
I think another thing about it is that they have to basically get your consent, and I think that it's because they're not just, clueless people and don't understand like the concept of karma. I think that they have their own spiritual beliefs, and they believe they're not doing anything wrong as long as they're getting your consent. And that's what's made the most sense to me about why do they tell us what they're going to do in movies and The Simpsons, and why do they even let us know they're having these little summits? Why don't they just have it completely secret? It's not impossible. Well, I think that they have to kind of get your consent, and that's another reason I don't hold the average person who just wants to ignore the government as just completely not responsible. I think that you're absolutely giving your consent to this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're not going against it, then you're part of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there's complacency and there's support, and they want both. They want
sure.
I mean, so you got to think like, okay, well, if they had this thing in secluded location with no press, and then it came out, people might be upset.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those world leaders might face, some political opposition when they go back to their country for attending this secret meeting.
Right.
Whereas,
how dare you?
Right. Whereas if they tell everyone about it, see, nothing nefarious going on. We're just planning the every detail of your life, which is literally true. Because, I mean, one of the things they were talking about was the central bank digital currency. And that very much ties into this Web 3.0, the Internet of Things, where they will have, and I remember hearing about like one of the recent moves is that in the medical world, right down to the veterinary world, you have to have like a special new way of keeping track of literally every individual item. So it's not just this kind of product that goes over here. No, it is this individual item. This particular object goes over here, and you have to log that this object was sold to this company over here. And that's the direction that we're moving here, is the so-called Internet of Things, which I assure you will very soon become the Internet of People as well, because it ties into the central bank digital currency. And it really is absolute control of literally every activity.
As I've been beginning to read Olu Axelman's newest book, Presumed Guilty, I've been constantly having myself think, wow, I totally understand now why Chris Wade keeps his phone in a whatever that is.
Faraday bag?
Yeah, Faraday bag, and why he is so against just giving absolutely any piece of identifying information to the government. It's making a lot more sense now, because he goes into how the government gets Google to give them like Google search warrants and all those things, and just there's so many different ways that they're getting information about us and using it against you, even things you wouldn't think, like, oh, I bought a spatula. Well, now we have a warrant for everyone who bought a spatula in this area, and the Internet of Things is totally something that can aid with that.
By the way, the CBDC presentation that they had was a panel discussion held on the 29th, where they had some crypto people, basically, it looks like. One of the co-founders of Tether was there, and it was entitled "CBDCs and Stablecoins, Can They Coexist?" So they're trying to pitch
briefly.
They're trying to pitch the governments on not cracking down on the stablecoins, is what it sounds like to me.
That's interesting. Well, and that's the thing. They can exist briefly, but the fact of the matter is, if you let us trade, then the good currency will win out. And that's one of the things, like, we're in a very strange situation where their plots and plans are actually about to turn against them, because they absolutely have planned the takedown of the unipolar world, the New World Order of the American order is absolutely, and that's what we're experiencing now. That's why our currency is going to absolute ruin, because they want like a little currency for each one of their states for better control. But what they don't see coming is the fact that once you allow that market, then the superior product is going to take a greater share of that market, and that superior product is cryptocurrency. And just to mention real briefly, there's another article by Gulf News on the knowledge economy is key to empowering governments. And given how we know that the economy so far has worked, I think that's what the plan is as well, is to control who gets access to what knowledge.
Indeed. Now, of course, that's always been the plan. There's always been forbidden knowledge and esoteric stuff that they don't want you to know about. And we are out of time for tonight. You can join us between now and tomorrow anytime over at freetalklive.com. And don't forget our social media site, social.freetalklive.com. See you tomorrow. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels?